Welcome. My name is Mrs. Lacey Taylor, and I will be your lecturer today. So, a little bit about me. I am a self taught master bread baker. We have been independent of store bought bread going on 3 years now. And I am also the founder of the Melanated Millennial Homemaker. This picture you see right here is my first bread order I ever did with my bread company, Zia Bread. Um, this customer, I think she ordered like 10 pounds of bread. And when she got her bread, she was like, wow, I didn't know I was getting this much bread. And that's the beauty of baking your own bread. Like you get so much or little. All right. So I have a question. Which is your favorite processed bread? Is it Sara Lee? Is it Sunbeam, Nature's Own, Bimbo? Which bread is your favorite?
I usually buy Nature's Own, the honey wheat.
Okay, thank you for sharing. So now I'm going to ask the question, why? Why is Nature's Own your favorite? What do you love about it?
It's typically sweet. That's pretty much it. Sweet and soft is typically why I buy it. I don't know why I started buying it because I grew up buying Wonder Bread, I think it was called. That's what we.
Mm-hmm. A lot of us grew up on Wonder Bread, and Wonder Bread is soft, it's sweet, and it lasts, right?
Yes.
Mm. Now, like, listen, I'm gonna scare you, but it's a good scare because it's a scare to wake us up to see that yes, this bread is soft. Yes, it's yummy. And even listen, it even has the nerve to say heart healthy. And I don't know if you follow me or not, but my father, he just recently had an emergency open heart surgery. I will not feed him this bread. My father eats bread. I'm baking all of his bread when he comes home. And I'm about to show you exactly why I'm going to bake his bread and why he'll never touch store bought bread again, and why my family will never touch store bought bread, and why we haven't in going on 3 years now. So, did you know that if not all processed bread items are made with bleach flour? So you might be thinking, oh, bleach flour, that don't sound too bad. First, let's look at bleach. Why are we consuming anything with bleach in it? Would you put a dab of bleach in your spaghetti? Would you put a dab of bleach in your grits? Would you put a dab of bleach in your homemade ice cream? No. Chances are you shook your head with everything I said. And so now the question is, why is bleach flour bad? Bleach flour is so bad because it's stripped of its nutritious germ. Flour, before it becomes flour, it's a grain. And in the grain, it has wheat germ. The wheat germ provides all the nutrition for the wheat as well as the consumer of the wheat. That's why you see, these birds getting fat off of straight grain because they're getting that nutritious germ that, is nutritious to their bodies. And if it's nutritious for birds, it's nutritious for humans. If we're consuming the birds, you know, it's nutritious for us. And with them bleaching the flour, it leads commercial bread bakeries to add artificial nutrients into it. Artificial meaning it's created in a laboratory. I don't know about you, but this whole GMO thing is getting a little out of hand. And when you start, not trying because they are, when you start creating food in a laboratory, that's when we need to start scratching our heads and being like, is this really safe? If you look on the top of your food, well, the front of your food, and it says artificial sweeteners, artificial preservative, artificial color, artificial flavor, it was created in the laboratory and it's not from the earth. Pure sugar comes from sugar cane. That's why we get the unrefined sugar. It's the sugar crystals. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer to dissolve, but guess what? It's not made in a laboratory and it's not artificial. Processed bread isn't good for you, period. This is my sweet baby girl. She used to always make this face and it would just crack me up. But she would make it especially if I took her pacifier out of her mouth. And I just took her pacifier out. And she just made that face. And I just had to use it. Processed bread isn't good for you at all. At all. So what's in your bread? Let's take a look. Let's start with high fructose corn syrup. That's an artificial sweetener. You said you like that Nature's Own because it's sweet. That's because of that high fructose corn syrup. High fructose, not just fructose corn syrup, not just fructose, because fructose is sugar, but it's high sugar corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup is derived from corn. Corn is not bad for you, corn is good for you. However, when corn is made into this high fructose corn syrup, for one, it's made in a laboratory. Two, it's an artificial sweetener. It does not come from sugarcane, what our body actually needs. If we wanted to get like if our body needs to get sugar from corn, our body will break down the corn. Okay, and it'll suck the glucose out of um, out of the corn naturally. All right, and let's look at calcium sulfide found in drywall and plaster. This right here, if you like your bread, that really soft texture and how you can make that really awesome bread without your bread tearing, that's because of the calcium sulfide. And we see the calcium, we think, oh, calcium, it must be good for us. No, ma'am, it is not. No, sir, it is not. Calcium sulfide, if it was good for us, why is it found in drywall and plaster? This is what's in our bread. If you get your pack of bread right now, you're going to see calcium sulfide in it. Why are we putting things in our body that's found in drywall and plaster, the things that we build our house with? If that's the case, we should be able to eat our house, but we cannot. One thing that me and my husband live by is if we can't put it in our body, we do our best not to put it on the outside of our body. We can legit eat our body cream. Like if I accidentally lick some body cream, it's okay. Because the same ingredients that's in our body cream, we can eat. And a lot of the ingredients in my body cream I use in my everyday cooking. I don't use my exact body cream, but I use a lot of those ingredients found in it. Okay. Let's look at calcium propionate. This is the mold inhibitor. This is your artificial preservative. Okay. This is why your bread is able to last 14 days or until a specific date. Now, that date that's marked on your bread, that date is 14 days from the day that it was packaged. Why in God's green earth are we putting 14-day-old bread in our body? And chances are, like, especially if you get like the day old bread from the day old bakeries, it's past their expiration date, but it's still quote unquote good. That bread is pretty much 4 weeks old. So that's month old bread. Why are we putting 2 week old bread, 3 week old bread, month old bread in our body? Bread is only supposed to last for 5 to 7 days. That's its shelf life. Natural bread lasts 5 to 7 days. To naturally preserve your bread, what you need to do is freeze your bread. You got to wrap it up, really good. And then you freeze your bread in the freezer, and it can be frozen in the freezer, which is naturally preserved for up to 3 months. And when you want to take your bread out and eat it, all you got to do is unthaw it at room temperature for about 30 minutes or until the bread is soft. After it's soft, you pop it in the oven for like 15, 20 minutes. You have fresh baked bread. It's not some sketchy 14 plus day old bread. Store bought bread, processed bread is not safe. So let's look at this. When we go to the grocery store, we see our bread. We're like, okay, let me look at the expiration date. Okay, next week. Hmm, let's talk about its travels to your hand. Let's backtrack. So for one, we don't know how long it's been sitting on that shelf unless we saw the, bread delivery guy putting the bread on the shelf. We don't know how long it's been sitting on that shelf. And what a lot of grocery stores like to do, they like to rotate the bread. So the bread in the back that doesn't get touched, they put to the front. Mm. So yeah, it might be a little closer to the expiration date. That's why, it has like a 20% off or 50% off. But why are you putting this in your body? So for one, we don't even know how long it's been on the shelf because we didn't see the bread delivery guy put it on the shelf. So right there, it's probably been 2 to 3 weeks right there because like I told you, at the grocery stores, they rotate their bread. I used to work at Winn Dixie when I was a teenager, and that's what we did. We would rotate the bread on the shelf. The bread in the back you put to the front, and you sell it that way. And then whatever we didn't sell and it was getting close to their expiration date, we ship it to the week old bakery. And that week old bakery, like I said, you're getting month old bread. That's 4 weeks plus. Okay. So it's sitting on the grocery store shelf for about 2 to 3 weeks, 3 weeks at max, 4 weeks because you're getting it 50% off if it's on sale. Okay. And then on its travels to you, was it shipped to the store in a moisture proof vehicle? Was it exposed to heat for a long period of time? Was it exposed to cool for a short period of time? Was the bread shocked? Because bread is a living organism. When it has yeast in it, it's a living organism. So when it's exposed to extreme temperatures, it could shock. Okay. And that can cause rapid molding. But because of the calcium propionate, and you see it radiation, and I'm going to touch on that, because of the calcium propionate, it stops it from molding. Now, when you see it actually molding, that means the calcium propionate or maybe the radiation, if any, is in there. It no longer works. That's why you see the mold. That 4 weeks is up because after 4 weeks, five at by like 4.5 is when you start seeing the mold. Okay, and so was the bread shocked? Okay, and then before that, you have it made in a factory in huge basins mixed with these mixers that we don't know how clean they are. I had enough courage to watch a commercial bakery video. And when I tell you those machines that they use to knead your dough, your precious dough, it looked disgusting. Caked up dough, like they probably clean it at the end of the day, which is disgusting. It's just sick. So you have it being one mixed in by machines, not by loving hands. Okay, that's one. Two, you have it being baked and packaged and sliced by machines, not by loving hands. Then you have it packaged, and then you have it. Well, they cool it down, do a rapid cooling, then they package it, and then it's wrapped up and it's stamped with its expiration date. And then next thing you know, it's being handled and it's being put in pallets onto a shipping container. Next thing you know, the shipping container is being shipped. Okay, so that's days, and that's a week right there, depending on where your grocery store gets their bread from. Okay, so that's a week in shipping right there, and then it finally comes to the grocery store. Okay, and then it's loaded off the, you know, the docks or whatever, and it's on the shelf. And then from right there, so we got about a week and a half, 2 weeks right there, and that's just getting it to the shelf. And then when it's once it's on the shelf, if it's not the first thing that's grabbed, which it's not, it's going to be rotated after 2 weeks. And then by the time you get to that bread, it's 4 weeks old, which is a month old. And that's what you're giving to your family. All right. And now let's talk about the radiation. When I heard this scientist, or he's a chemist, okay, because they have chemists who are making bread. Chemist baking bread. Why are chemists baking bread, Lacey? I'm glad you asked. It's because all of these artificial ingredients are being put in it in order for our bread to last longer and to be sweeter and to be more elastic and to be soft, because the elasticity makes it softer. When you have stiff bread, it's not soft. Okay, because we got to have the best bread, we got to make sure that it lasts longer. We got to make sure it tastes the best. We got to make sure it keeps them coming back. With that high fructose corn syrup, it keeps us coming back to it. It keeps us buying it because this is what we like. This is our favorite bread. Ooh, it's even heart healthy. If it has calcium sulfide in it, it's not healthy. If it has calcium propionate, it's not healthy. If it has radiation in small doses, when he said radiation in small doses that's not harmful, bro, radiation is radiation. For you to say radiation in small doses not harmful, that's an oxymoron and a contradiction. Radiation is not safe at all. Okay? Radiation is radiation. This is what's in our bread. And of course, they're not going to say, oh, and a dab of radiation. They're not going to say that. It takes a lot of digging and a lot of research to find this stuff out. But have no fear. Queen Mother is here to let you know what's in your processed store bought bread. So let's talk about our vision. The vision of the melanated millennial homemaker, Zia Bread, and My Nature's House. Our vision is to teach as many people as we can how to bake their own bread, leading to a healthier diet and life. Like I said, my father, he just had emergency heart surgery. Ain't no way I'm feeding my beloved father store bought, heart healthy, and I put huge air quotes to that that bread. Okay? So when we bake our own bread, we have a lower glycemic index, meaning the sugar is decreased because we're not putting that high or that high fructose corn syrup in it. We're not doing that. When you bake bread with Lacey, okay, you're putting natural sugar, whether it be honey or whether it be your white sugar that you buy from the store. Make sure you read that package, okay? Or whether it be brown sugar. You know how much you're putting in it. You know it's not being dumped with this artificial sweetener because you're putting maybe 1 tablespoon or maybe 1 teaspoon of sugar. So lower glycemic index is still going to be delicious, okay? Because processed bread, it contains the high fructose corn syrup, and that adds the sweetness. All right. Less bloat when you bake your own bread. Like I said, when you get your store bought bread, it's made in, you know, a machine that mixes the dough. Okay. And this leads your dough to be overworked. And when you overwork dough, that causes a higher gluten strand, which leads to bloating. I've developed a kneading technique to where I don't overwork the dough, yet my dough is soft, airy. And when I bake the bread, the crumb of the bread is delicate, yet it gets the job done. If you need a hearty sandwich, guess what? You can cut your bread to the thickness that you need it to get the sandwich of your dreams. All right? It's wholesome bread when you bake your own bread. Tell them, baby. Yes, wholesome bread. Processed bread, it contains artificial chemicals and preservatives. I just showed you artificial high fructose corn syrup, artificial sweetener, calcium sulfide. We find that in drywall and plaster. Okay, and they say that improves the elasticity of the bread. Calcium propionate, which is a mold inhibitor, and if it so happens to have a dash of radiation, child. Okay, it's wholesome. Not all bread is created equally, as we see. Okay, and when you bake your own bread, it's wholesome bread. It's the whole bread because you know it's simple ingredients. You know that it has unbleached flour in it that has its wheat germ. Okay. You know that you have 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. You know you have a tablespoon of coconut oil or vegetable oil or olive oil. You know you have water. There's no guessing. There's no calcium propionate. There's no high fructose corn syrup. Okay. It's cost effective. When you bake your own bread, you're paying pennies on the dollar for freshly baked bread, and it's on demand. One thing that I teach the ladies in my community on Facebook is, making a bulk dough because we've been self sufficient of bread for so long. We can't afford to not have dough readily available for our bread. We can't afford to not do it. So with that being said, I created a special recipe that I can make cinnamon rolls out of, English muffins, Italian bread, yeast rolls, hamburger buns, hot dog buns, pizza, the pizza dough. I mean, shall I go on? My bulk dough recipe that I created, needless to say, is lit. Okay. And this is what I'm going to be teaching Baking Bread with Lacey participants how to create their own bulk dough that's suitable for their diets. Because listen, everybody's dietary needs are different. Okay. And that's one thing about it being wholesome. So, say for instance, if you need more calcium in your diet, okay, maybe you can add, some powdered milk. Or if you don't want to add powdered milk, you just add regular milk. Or maybe you might need to add more fats into your diet. You can add butter to your bread. So you're able to, it's cost effective, and you're also able to tweak your bread recipe to your dietary needs. Okay. And lastly, but most importantly, it can be preserved naturally. You don't need artificial preservatives to preserve your precious, delicious bread. Okay. Bread is one thing that sustains us and that has been sustaining us since the beginning of time. You know what I'm saying? Once our distant ancestors realized that they could, use a pestle and mortar to ground wheat, and when they add water to it and let it sit and bake it, it's like, whoa, what is this thing we call pan bread? We need bread to survive, but we cannot survive on this store bought bread. If we survive on this store bought bread, our lifespan it it gets shorter and shorter and shorter. So my question to you, aren't you ready to start baking bread with Lacey? Like, aren't you ready? Aren't you ready to start giving your family delicious, wholesome bread that is free of preservatives, bread that doesn't have all these artificial sweeteners, bread that doesn't have all these artificial dough conditioners in it to make it soft when there's natural ways we can make our bread soft, which I do. All the bread you see on here, from the yeast rolls, the cinnamon rolls, the onion bagel, this braided loaf, and these blueberry muffins I made with my own two hands. And so can you. All right. So now I want to go ahead and I just want to open the floor for any questions. Let me look in the chat.
Just relax and feel the breeze.